Hi film fans, my name's Sam and welcome to It's Only a Film. Today I'm going to talk about 5 movies that I think deserve another chance. But before we begin, don't forget to leave a like in the video, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you get the latest up-to-date content from this very channel. There are plenty of films out there that get overlooked or dismissed when they're first released, either because they are misunderstood or don't live up to fan expectations. Sometimes a franchise is held in such high regard that no matter what the filmmakers come up with, it never seems to match the hype. Today, I'm going to talk about 5 films that I think are actually pretty great, and hopefully by the end of this video, you'll be willing to give these films a second chance, a third chance, or just look at them a little bit more favourably. So with that being said, let's get started. John Carter is a fun 2012 sci-fi adventure based on the book A Princess of Mars by Edgar Rice Burroughs. Back in 2012, this was one of the most expensive films ever made and is also considered to be one of the biggest box office bombs of all time. I really don't know what happened here. The film has an excellent cast with Taylor Kitsch as John Carter, and it also stars the likes of Willem Dafoe, Lynn Collins and Mark Strong. The plot is fun, it's exciting and has a world that's really engaging and interesting, just like any other sci-fi epic adventure. This is one of those films that spent a lifetime in development hell before it was finally made into the movie we got in 2012. And when reading online about why this film failed so much, the finger of blame seems to be pointed at a really terrible marketing campaign, as well as the film being mistitled. And I have to agree, John Carter isn't a title that grabs your attention or screams excitement. And that's where this problem lies, because this film is exciting. It's a fantasy space western with a princess set on Mars. This film deserves better. Unfortunately, due to the film's poor box office return, the 2 planned sequels were cancelled, those being Gods of Mars and Warlord of Mars, which in themselves sound like amazing films just waiting to be made. In my opinion, this film has been mistakenly tarred as being a bad movie, all because it didn't have a good return on the box office. And don't let that fool you. It isn't a bad film, and I strongly recommend you give it a watch, especially if you're a fan of movies like Star Wars and even Avatar. What happens when you get a movie about one of the most popular characters in one of the most popular cinematic franchises ever? That's right, you get a hugely underwhelming box office disaster. Solo: A Star Wars Story should have never been a flop. As a movie about Han Solo, surely it was destined to be a hit. But it wasn't. During filming, the original directors, Phil Lord and Christopher Miller, were replaced with Ron Howard. Ron ended up reshooting about 70% of the film. I can remember following news about the production online and thinking this film was going to be a complete disaster. I never went to the cinema to see it, and from my friends that did go and see it, I heard that it wasn't really up to much. About a year after its release, I finally got round to watching it, and maybe it was because I had low expectations, but I watched it and thought, this film's great. I mean, it didn't change the world or anything, and it probably never had to be made, but it wasn't terrible and it was a lot of fun, and it's a lot better than what people say. Solo had a lot of hype surrounding it, and there was a lot of eyes on Alden Ehrenreich, who was taking over the role of Han Solo from Harrison Ford, and to be fair, he actually done a really good job. I remember reading that there may have been a fan boycott of this film due to the poor reception of The Last Jedi. But again, for me, I find that unfair, as The Last Jedi is another film that I think deserves reappraisal, especially after the misfire that was The Rise of Skywalker, but I'll leave that for another video. I find that this film gets forgotten an awful lot when talking about movies in the Star Wars franchise. And to me, I think it's a perfectly fine chapter within the Star Wars universe. And without giving anything away, if you haven't seen the film, there's a big reveal of one of my all-time favourite Star Wars villains who makes a return. And I don't want to give you any spoilers in case you do go ahead and watch it, but as a fan, I really appreciated that. Although, frustratingly enough, that reveal seems to be for nothing, as the story for the time being seems to have hit a dead end. The Matrix was hands down one of the most revolutionary sci-fi action movies of all time, and its influence can still be felt to this very day. So, with that being said, a sequel was sure to come. In fact, 2 sequels were to come, and then eventually a third. The Matrix Reloaded and The Matrix Revolutions are essentially one film that's been split into 2, and the one that I want to focus on is The Matrix Reloaded. This film wasn't as widely praised as the first, and a lot of criticism focused on subpar special effects, which the first was famous for, and also an overly complicated plot. And plenty of people complained about the lacklustre ending because it ended with a "to be continued." Even though we all knew that the third film was coming 6 months later, people still hated that this film ended with a "to be continued." There seems to be a general consensus that after the first Matrix film, the sequels steadily declined one after the other, but I'm here to argue that that's not true. In fact, these films are a lot of fun, and out of the original Matrix trilogy, Reloaded is my favourite. This film, to me, is the best of the original 3, and I'll tell you why. Sure, the effects during some of the fight scenes, like the bullet brawl, they don't stand the test of time. The special effects are a bit wonky. Neo looks plastic, Agent Smith looks plastic, and it looks like a fight between rubbery plastic men. But if you can get past that, the action sequences are really good, especially during the bullet brawl, which I just mentioned, where it's probably one of the best scenes in the film. The action's phenomenal, and okay, at the end of the film, when Neo's speaking to the architect, he's as clear as mud. I really didn't understand what he was saying, and I'd be lying if I told you I never had to Google what the architect actually meant at the end of this film. I get it, you shouldn't have to think this hard and be so confused about a film. I get why a lot of people would be put off by this, but for me, I don't know why I do it, but the more ridiculous a franchise becomes, the more I just love the story. I do it with Nightmare on Elm Street, I do it with Alien, do it with Predator. Just the more kind of ridiculous it becomes, the more I tend to like it. I don't know why. The Matrix included, the Matrix plot becomes so complicated when it didn't have to be. It was already complicated enough, and all of a sudden there's been multiple Matrixes, there's been multiple different ones, and each time they try to save Zion or change the world with the machines, and it just goes arms and legs and becomes ridiculous, and I love it. But anyway, this film has so many reasons for you to give it another chance. For a start, it has Neo in his prime. Neo in this is essentially Superman. He is great, and Keanu Reeves is excellent in this film at playing the part. He plays it so well. You have the Ghost Twins, which have got really cool action sequences. You've got this epic car chase towards the end of the film that is just phenomenal. You really need to see this car chase. And my favourite bit about the film is you get the re-emergence of Smith as Neo's antithesis. He is the yin to his yang, the Flash to his reverse Flash. He's the one to Neo's -1. But in all seriousness, if you like martial arts and you like sci-fi films, please do not shunt this movie. Give it a watch, give it another chance. You won't be disappointed. Right, Spider-Man 3 was in no way a flop, but fans didn't take to it as well as the first 2 Spider-Man movies. At the time, It made a ton of money, and it was also one of the most expensive movies ever made, so financially it was a success. But there was a huge fan backlash after the release. Criticism was especially levied at the casting of Topher Grace's fan favourite villain, Venom. The film was also criticised for having way too many villains and far too much going on with the plot. Director Sam Raimi said he felt that he let fans down with this film, as he was pressured by the studio to introduce the character of Venom, which he didn't fully understand. As Sam Raimi was a fan of classic era Spider-Man comics, and Venom didn't make his debut until the 1980s. But there is more good in the film than there's bad. For a start, Sandman and New Goblin, their story arcs are really good and could have held a film on their own. And Black Suited Spider-Man, awesome. Personally, I would have had the film end with the defeat of Sandman and New Goblin, and then the reveal of Topher Grace as Venom at the very end of the film to set up the sequel, as a Spider-Man versus Venom movie would have been truly epic. However, it wasn't meant to be. Now, watching this film, dancing emo Tobey Maguire will make you cringe, but it's supposed to. The guy's a geek, he's a nerd, he thinks this is what it's like to be cool, so he becomes obnoxious and he's supposed to make you cringe. That's why the people around about him, the women that he's doing the pointy fingers to and the thumbs up and the dance moves to, they're disgusted. You're not supposed to like this, it's not supposed to be taken serious. But I remember at the time, people did take this serious and they were wondering, why is this in a superhero movie? What have they done to Spider-Man? But it's supposed to be funny, it's supposed to be cringy. I know it didn't land very well because people took it as if it was being serious, which you should never have. The scene was supposed to be taken comically, and for whatever reason, not everybody's seen it for the true comedic gold that it is. Okay, so maybe it is a bit too much, but come on, it's dancing emo Spider-Man. This film certainly has its flaws, and it isn't as good as the first two, but it's not terrible, and it's a lot of fun, and it definitely deserves a second chance. This is probably going to be my most controversial choice on this list, but please hear me out. Yes, this film killed off popular characters at the start of the movie. Yes, this film opted for a subpar CGI alien as opposed to practical effects. Yes, there was major studio interference which prevented one of the future best directors in the world from making the film that he wanted to make. But all that aside, I actually really love this film. Everyone wanted a continuation of the story between the characters that survived aliens. But instead, we get this completely left field, original follow-up. So I can 100% understand why many people were so disappointed with the outcome of Alien 3. And that's testament to how good James Cameron's previous movie was. But Alien 3, it does its own thing and doesn't try to copy what was done in the previous two installments. The first two films are so different from each other, with the first being an all-out horror, claustrophobic nightmare, and the second being a sci-fi action movie. So it really shouldn't have come to a surprise that this film would try something different. And different it is, in everything from the tone, the characters, the atmosphere, and even the design of the alien itself. And for me, you have to respect that. There are two different versions of this film you can get. You can get the theatrical cut and you can get the assembly cut. Personally, I prefer the assembly cut as it adds more to the story. Although I do prefer the theatricals version of a dog alien as opposed to the ox alien. As for me, it makes more sense with the alien being nicknamed the Runner and being a lot smaller than the aliens from the previous films. So a dog just fits better. This film is a thriller which creates feelings of desolation and hopelessness and can be quite poignant at times. I always thought it gave a fitting end to the Ripley and Alien saga until Resurrection came along and ruined a perfectly good trilogy. I honestly feel this film's biggest crime was coming after the fan favourite aliens and not carrying on James Cameron's story. But Like the first and second, if you go into this knowing that it's its own thing, there's a lot of good stuff to be found. And I dare say that if the studio weren't as controlling with the director, maybe this film could have been a few polishes away from being a masterpiece. And that's why I believe that Alien 3 certainly deserves another chance. Well, film fans, thanks for watching the video on 5 films that I think deserve another chance. Let me know in the comments if you agree with any of my choices, and let me know if you think there are any other films out there that have been branded unfairly and deserve another go. Don't forget, if you like what you see, leave a like in this video, subscribe to the channel. I've been Sam and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.